we reviewed the check register list for the period of June 12th through June 25th, 2025. And I believe our general manager, Matt, will go through that with the full board.
All right. Thank you, Director Dias. Good evening, board. So begin on page 19 of your board packet is our check run for this period. So I'll hit just a couple of highlights. We went through this in detail with the Finance Committee late last week. Item number 1 is our monthly variable payment to Department of Water Resources. Just under 1.125 million. It's for the month of May. And this was to move about 5,300 acre feet of water, of state water project water through the state water project system for delivery here to the Antelope Valley. Most of that water was either banked or delivered to our various water treatment facilities during the month of May. Moving on down, we have a couple of chemical payments for our treatment process. That's 17 and 18 on the check run. We had pretty light check run for this period. Nothing else really jumped out. We went through some of the questions that were brought up at the committee, but then on page 22, we have just a few payments that are associated with the High Desert Water Bank. Total is about $7,000, and those expenses will be reimbursed by Metropolitan Water District. And that's all I have, unless you have any specific questions.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Does the board have any questions or comments?
Mr. President, I move approval of Board Order 8A1.
I'll second. This is Keith.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, if we could have a roll call.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Harris. Tremblay. Keith Dias.
Yes.
Drew Mercy.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yeah. Well, thank you, Director Dias.
Thank you. And that concludes the Finance Committee report.
Our next item, item number B1, High Desert Water Bank. And again, we'll go to Director Dias.
Thank you, Mr. President. The High Desert Water Bank and Water Bank Resources Committee met June 27th. And the first item we discussed was the monthly update of the High Desert Water Bank with Engineering Manager Livesey, and hopefully he's here tonight to give the report to the full board.
All right. Thank you, Director Dice. I am here. Good evening, President Lane and members of the board. We'll hop right in. This is our executive summary. You've seen this before, but this has been updated now with a couple of the terms that changed with the amended and restated agreement that we entered into with Metropolitan, coincided with the bond financing agreement. So one I'll point out is the agreement term. Now this reflects the agreement term, which has been extended through 2057. We've also updated the per acre foot return costs from Metropolitan to AVEK when we return water for their benefit. That was updated in accordance with CPI from the time of the original agreement, now to $120 per acre foot, up from 100. And then the minimum recovery usage fee on this slide has also been updated. So that's up to $2.4 million now as a minimum return to AVEK. So both of those, of course, are escalated with CPI. So otherwise, this is pretty much the same with regards to the goals of the project and the rights to the project. No change in banking status. Metropolitan is still not banking, neither is AVEK. So the totals banked to date have not changed. Getting into some recent work. So Stantec is continuing to work on progressing the on-site electrical design from 60 to 90%. They're also working towards moving the well equipping and recovery package to their final design. We had a good meeting with them last week and got back on track. Now with some of that work done with Metropolitan, we can get back onto a somewhat fast pace, hopefully, in getting some of the design packages completed and hopefully get back into construction towards the end of 2025, early 2026. Montgomery and Associates is working on completing their well drilling oversight with the contractor. And then the next steps of that is preparing the well completion reports, which is our final documentation of those wells. And then they also worked on some comment responses in regards to the Tejon Ranch modeling work that was done. So they've been doing a good job. Moving forward into budget, I've adjusted this table a little bit from what you've seen in the past. Hopefully this is a little bit more helpful. I think the High Desert Water Bank Committee found it to be a little bit more informative. So we've still got the phases of the project on the far left, as well as the budget allocations kind of towards the middle, as well as the approved contracts. What changed was the far right two columns. So I've included now what the estimates are for the remainder of the project. And then in the far right column, the estimated amount, whether we'll anticipate being over or under budget. The takeaway from this slide in the far bottom right corner is that we're currently, as we sit now, of course, we've got some big construction packages still to issue, but it looks like right now would be about 12 million under the $211 million budget. So that's good news as far as the takeaway on this. That does include just some contingency funds that were thrown in there at the beginning of the project to account for anything unforeseen. But yeah, overall, we're looking good. The one item on there that's a little over budget is the CEQA work. So we've got that kind of separated out. I think one of the comments from the High Desert Water Bank Committee was to split preliminary design and CEQA because those were combined on a previous version of this table. So that's been separated out now. And then that has to do with some of the additional survey work that's needed for the SE alignment, as well as some of the Section 106 environmental compliance having to do with the federal grant money that Metropolitan received. So on top of what we've already authorized, I threw another 100,000 on there just as a, just kind of placeholder for now. We think that there will be some additional construction surveys, et cetera. So, but all in all, this looks pretty good from where we're at right now. So
I have a
we'll hope to
question.
stay on track. Yes, ma'am.
So the parentheses brackets means you're over the budget?
Over budget, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're under budget on the other things
Yeah.
that you put in.
Yep. Everything else looks like it's tracking pretty good. So, the well equipping package, construction obviously is the largest portion of what's remaining to be issued. And the well equipped recovery package is going to be a big one. So when we get the bids on that, we'll have a much better idea of what we're looking at as far as overall budget.
Well, I'll ask a question on construction management. What exactly is that? I mean, it sounds pretty simple. It's $5 million.
Yeah, so that's the inspection and management of the contractors. So when we have a contractor working out in the field, they have a set of plans and specifications that they're required to follow while they're building the project.
Right.
So that we're sure that we're getting what we paid for, right? What they bid on. So we have a third party, it's Kennedy Jenks on the last several projects that we've done, have gone out in the field and they're out there every day with the contractor, observing the work, taking pictures, documenting what's happening on a daily basis, and basically addressing the issues that come up in the field. So they also run all the progress meetings, process most of the payment invoices to ensure that, we're only paying for the work that's actually been completed through whatever that date is, all those types of things. So,
Okay, thanks.
yeah, no problem. So that might be a good segue.
real quick.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't expect an answer, but just something to think about and maybe come back on other projects, since the governor and others in Sacramento are congratulating themselves for easing CEQA restrictions. Just curious if that's going to save us any money or if it's more on paper.
Yeah.
And again, I wouldn't expect you to know because I think it's just got passed, but
Yeah.
something to maybe look at in the future.
Yeah.
Good point.
Good point. Question.
The outstanding $697,078 for land acquisition, what land are we still looking at?
That's just a placeholder. Yeah. I think that, when this budget here was developed, which I think was 2023. Yeah. I think when we updated it to 211, there was a thought that potentially more land would need to be acquired that we would have to pay for maybe the SCE alignment, for example, to pay for some easements to bring that 11 miles of transmission line to the High Desert Water Bank. So that, I know that was one thing that we had thought of at that point in time. And I think that's still a little up in the air with regards to whether that should be SCE to pay for that or AVEK, but so just kind of a placeholder for things like that.
So have we, all the eminent domain actions are done, we've gotten all the land we paid for, is that?
Yeah, within the 1,500 acre project site, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
All right, so one more thing, this was something that Director Lane had requested, so we thought we brought this to the High Desert Water Bank Committee and thought we might as well share it with the full board. But just looking at some of those soft costs, so this is the design and engineering services during construction, and the construction management, as Director Tremblay just asked about. So those costs relative to the construction value. So we see numbers in the 3 to 4% range, sometimes under 3, for those services. So the column on the far right is the percentage of the total construction, and then the column next to that is percent of the total budget. So in all cases, that's pretty low. That's well below industry standard for construction projects typically. So we're doing pretty good with regards to what those costs are relative to the entire project. So just thought we'd share that.
I have one question. The construction, management is a substantial number. Could we not do that ourselves with added personnel?
Yeah, I mean, if we hired the right people, I'm sure we could. Being that Metropolitan is paying the cost for this, I don't think it makes sense to take AVEK staff and put them out in the field. If we hired additional staff, obviously, once the High Desert Water Bank project is over, we would have to find something to do with
When they have inspectors, is there usually, how many inspectors are usually out there? One or more?
One or two, depending on the phase of construction and how much is going on. With Kennedy Jenks, there were multiple projects happening at the same time for a certain duration. They had a couple of people out there. One that was the inspector and one construction manager who was kind of part-time in the field, part-time doing the office work. So it kind of depends on the level of construction.
Well, 2.4% is pretty cheap, but 5 million sounds like an awful lot.
Yeah.
That's the thing on crap.
Yeah. Well, big project.
It's a small percentage.
Yeah. It's still a lot of money. So.
That they bid on that. We're going through they have a contract on time and materials. Is that correct?
For construction management?
Yes.
Yeah, it's based on hourly rates that were established in the contract. So it is based on the number of hours that they spend out there. So there's not a flat fee to cover all of the construction that's happening. So as they're out there, they're tracking time and they bill on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So getting into contracts, we'll hopefully be able to eliminate some of these line items fairly soon here, but these are just what's active right now. So you see several for Stantec or various aspects of the project. We know the recharge package is completed, so hopefully we get some final billings on that and we can remove some of those. Drilling package 3 is coming to a close relatively soon. So hopefully we can remove some of those in the near future. And for tonight, we have the third from the bottom there, stop log modifications. We'll be seeking a notice of completion on that, and then we should be able to get that wrapped up. But the intent of this table is really to show kind of what the contracts are and what percentage were paid out versus the percentage of work. And if you look at the far right 2 columns, everything is tracking pretty close to the budget or under on each of these packages. So we're in good shape here.
Okay, I think we need a motion 8B2, notice of completion. That's recommended by staff.
Yeah, we've got a few slides on that. If you want, I can skip through
Go ahead,
few
go
more
ahead,
of
go
these. Okay.
Continue.
All right, sounds good. So we've got our summary of our contracts. We talked about that. This one's the money going in and out of the capital program account. This looks good. 4.1 million in the bank right now with an outstanding invoice to Metropolitan that's due here next week or so. So that's looking good. This table's all green, was intended to show the phases of construction for the well drilling package. It's all done now, so that's good news. And just a few photos. This is the final work that they had to do, which is the well completion. So they've got a little concrete pad poured and an enclosure shown there. And then here the contractor had to replace any aggregate base that they disturbed during construction. So this shows some of that work being completed. Last couple slides on the monthly update. We talked with the High Desert Water Bank Committee about this, but thought we'd bring it to the attention of the full board as well. We were made aware through an email string that went around about some citizens that were concerned about mulch disposal on agricultural lands here in the Western Antelope Valley. That citizen sent an email to the Board of Supervisors, Metropolitan, and AVEK about their concerns, which ranged pretty much about fire risk from the spreading of that mulch, as well as potential groundwater contamination from what is in that mulch. So we did a little bit of homework on that, but they identified a few properties located around the area of the High Desert Water Bank, which is shown here. There's one right here adjacent to it. There's one north in Kern County, and then there's one south here off the 138. So those are the ones that were identified in the email. We contacted the field deputy, Chuck Boswick, with LA County Supervisor Barger's office regarding that email. They were copied on it as well. And he said they were aware of it. They did a little homework too. And the public health department of the respective county would have the jurisdiction over monitoring and enforcing any regulations associated with that activity. So we told that to Metropolitan, and then more recently a new article came out in a website listed there, LAist. And so that kind of brought this back to the surface again, and Metropolitan had some additional questions. We discussed that with them and came to the conclusion kind of that we should send a joint letter to the Board of Supervisors for LA and Kern counties, just expressing, our, I guess concerns about this, or more that we want to make sure that they're enforcing whatever regulations are out there with regards to the mulch disposal. So our understanding is it is allowed to be spread on agricultural lands, but, and there's a certain allowable amount of, trash or other material that can be in there. But it's their responsibility to monitor that and make sure that it's within those limits or guidelines. So we thought it'd be a good idea to send that letter and go on the record that, we want to make sure that they're looking at that. And the High Desert Water Bank Committee was supportive of sending that joint letter, AVEK and Metropolitan. So just wanted to inform the full board before that letter goes out. Yeah.
Yeah, have we gone inspected those sites to see if it's the problem that the person who wrote the letter said it was?
It's hard to see without being able to go on their property. From the roadways, what you typically see is kind of large berms that are built up around the perimeter of the site, which really doesn't allow you to see what's inside. But I mean, the article has obviously some potentially sensationalized photos of trash, mixed in with some mulch, but it is difficult to tell from standing far back without getting in there.
Isn't that why we have a drone pilot?
Potentially. Yeah.
And it might be nice to see photographs of that we could send.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know what the legalities are. That's why we have attorneys here, but I would imagine a drone shot of those areas. And if it is a major problem, send pictures along with the letters.
Okay, Director Miller?
Yeah, so number one, do we own the parcels that the mulch, quote unquote, is on?
No.
Is it our mulch?
No.
Is this
It's
legal
a
mulch?
general, I'm sorry, is a general concern that a citizen had, right?
Right.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
could-
not related to AVEK in any way. They looped us into the email stream, being a large agency, having a project in the vicinity of this. So they were
So
trying
they're
to.
not accusing us of putting this stuff on
No.
these land.
No.
But it is a concern. I can see where it could be a concern. I just wanted to clarify that we don't own the land and it's not our mulch from our
Yeah.
ponds.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Now, is this legal mulch that's dumped out there from LA County sanitation, or what is it?
Yeah,
Because
what I learned from the supervisor's representative is that there was some legislature, I believe, enacted in California that doesn't allow the landfills to accept green waste within the landfill. So they have to find somewhere to put this stuff. So my understanding is they contract with people that haul the mulch and then homeowners or landowners that have places to spread it to move it away and spread it. And it's legal to do that, provided you're within the limits that have been set by the county health department.
green waste coming from where? People's green barrels?
Yeah.
Cause I know
So,
some farmers got a bunch of mulch done and had so much plastic and so much that they dumped on their fields thinking it was gonna be good, and it was just a disaster. And then I also know in the paper, they had a thing where there was tons of people dumping illegal mulch out on the west side, way out. And a lot of it had caught fires and they were dumping it on other people's land and everything else.
yeah, I think that kind of summarizes the gist of the email that's circulated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, we have a board order 8B2, a notice of completion for the turnout and turn in, for the High Desert Water Bank. Do we have a motion?
God, oh, go ahead.
Director Mercy.
I'll second.
Jay.
Who's-
Okay, is there no further questions or comments? Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Jay Tremblay,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good report.
All right, thanks, Justin.
Okay, that'll bring us item number C, Water Projects Committee. Director Miller is chairman of that committee.
Good evening. So we met July 3rd, and we had a number of items that we went over on our agenda. And I'm going to have our senior engineer, Roberts, take over on AC1.
Thank you, Director Miller. Good evening, board. Oh, I just turned off. And back, thank you all. So, some background on the project. We have the Leona Valley Tank Rehab. It's a 1 million gallon tank up on Cody Hill Road. And in October, the board authorized a contract with Cal Sierra for just over $1.9 million to perform a complete interior and exterior rehab. Most of you have seen these photos before, but kind of quickly through construction process, they set up some temporary tanks, which allowed us to dewater the main tank and operate off of those. Then they got inside, chipped out all of the old coal tar off of the floor, blasted any coating off of the walls and the roof, and then painted on the new coating on the inside. We have our before and after photo, just showing the comparison. And then some new photos are the exterior work. So they started by sanding and pressure washing. Then they went and spot primed all of the really bad areas and then did a complete prime over the entire surface. And then brushed on a finish coat. And final look of the tank is shown in the bottom right. Timeline of construction. So as of July 1st, the contractor has completely demobilized from the site. So this is about 81 days behind schedule. So what we did was we looked at the contract documents and we're deducting a $50,000 amount in exchange for a contract extension to extend the schedule. This is to cover any additional costs that we incurred by the extended period. So that there you can see a table has a summary of the decrease and the extension of the time. If there's any questions I can answer.
Is that for the contract, how much per day?
So there was different milestones for different components throughout the project that equated to different amounts per day.
So we followed that.
Yeah, pretty close. We were roughly right at $50,000.
It wasn't X number of dollars per day for not completed?
So it was, say for the interior work, it was $750 a day. But once we got the tank back up and running and we were operating off the main tank, it was then $250 a day for the exterior.
And to my understanding, the reason this was delayed was the extra work with the removing the coal tar that was inside the tank, right?
Yes, that took them a considerable amount more than they originally expected. So that's what took longer.
And this is a million gallon tank.
Million gallons.
So it took more time to remove that coal tar out of there.
But ultimately, the work was completed very well, and we're happy with the quality of it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're getting credit back of the 50 because they went over the contract. Right?
And They accept that assessment or any dispute?
Yeah, we went over it with them. Yeah, they're good with it.
And the committee agrees that with the recommendation. And I'll move on
Hey.
that.
Had one comment, Matt, and I'll address this to you, but how it's written up in accordance with the contract, a $50,000 deduct will be assessed in exchange for an 81-day contract extension to cover additional costs incurred by the agency for extended inspection services. Is that the right language, or is
That, I believe that is the right language, and you'll see this ties to the next item that Joe's going to present on, and that's the change order or the amendment for the inspection service.
Yeah, I've never seen it, in all the years I've been on this board, I've never seen it. That language right there, it's usually, yeah, it's whatever the reason are, do you have a per day late charge? And I think that's a little dangerous to put that language in there.
Yeah, this was reviewed by legal counsel as well. So to get the deduct in exchange for adding the 81 days to the
Now,
contract.
why wouldn't it just be so much per day as per the contract?
So much per day. Well, we're following the contract. In the contract, it had
But
X number of
we're
dollars.
putting because of increased inspection charges, that could, another, if we use that, keep doing that language, somebody wants, a little later, if we do that, they say, well, we want proof of it, could you provide all the time cards? And we justify that contract, we justify that charge. With the contract, whatever it is, $750, per day, and then $250 afterwards, it just should, as inspection, that cost should be because of the contract, not because of our increased cost.
Oh, I see what you're
And
saying.
someday we might have to justify that. But I've never seen that in all the years I've been on the board.
Well, like Joe said, the contractor is accepting of this
No.
change.
You understand?
I do understand what you're saying.
Yeah. This is a small scale, but on a big scale, it could be a lot more complicated.
Yep.
Using that language.
Exactly. Okay. I think for this one, staff recommends to move forward.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
And if it, meets the contract, but just the language I was explaining.
Exactly. I understand where you're coming from.
Okay.
Mr. President, I move on to 8C1.
And we have a motion by Director Miller.
I'll second. This is Keith.
Have a second by Director Dias. There's no further questions or comments. Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Jay Tremblay,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and AC2 is consideration and possible action on the amendment number 1 to contract with CSI Services in the not to exceed amount of $13,854.62 for inspection of the Leona Valley Tank Rehab Project. And Mr. Roberts will take that.
All right, thank you. Board authorized contract with CSI for $82,850, and they perform structural and coating inspections through the duration of the project. Due to those scheduled delays, the cost associated with inspection exceeded the original estimate by about $13,845.62. So our contract change order number 1 with Cal Sierra is enough to cover these extra costs, and staff and water projects recommend we approve this amendment.
Okay,
Okay, I'll move on 8C2.
and we have a motion by Director Miller, and we have a second.
I'll second that motion.
Director Parrish, we have a second. Okay, if no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Jay Tremblay,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, 8C3 is consideration and possible action on filing the notice of completion for the Leona Valley Tank Rehab Project, CP 20-02. Mr. Roberts.
All right, so Cal Sierra is complete with all work at the site. Is this time we're ready to file the notice of completion. We currently hold just over $94,000 in retention, or 5% of the contract value. So this amount can be released to the contractor 30 days after we file the notice of completion with the county, as long as we don't get any claims made against them. Our recommendation is to approve.
I'll move on 8C3.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that.
Give me a second.
In the balance.
For the comments and questions, Madam Secretary.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Jay Tremblay,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yeah, thank you.
All right, good job, Joe.
8C4, consideration and possible action on award of contract for the admin mechanical equipment enclosure project in the not to exceed amount of $77,500. That's project number CP 20-08. And engineering manager Livesay, direct us on that.
All right, thank you. Back again. So we're talking about a project just outside the conference room. Got an aerial image here and a large yellow arrow pointing to where that's at. If you go in the conference room, looking out the window, it'll be left and down below you. So that's the area. If you go down to that area, you'll see some mechanical equipment that's associated with the heating and cooling of this administration building here, right there at the ground floor. So that equipment's been exposed to the elements. It was installed together with this building when this building was constructed, and it's been exposed to the elements since that time. We've had some premature wear and tear on that equipment. You may recall that the boiler had to be replaced not too long ago at an expense of about $30,000. John told me that also the heat pumps have already had to be replaced, which are way below what their standard lifespan should be. So we're attributing that to the fact that it's been out and exposed to the wind, heat, rain, et cetera. And maintenance department went out there and they put a little temporary makeshift roof that you can kind of see in this photo. Obviously, that's not a permanent solution, but it does help keep a little bit of the rain off it there. But AV Engineering has designed a drawing to build a permanent enclosure around that closely matches the building here that we've already got built, and remove the existing fence that's there, and then put a large roll-up door so we have plenty of access to get into that area if it needs to be worked on. So that project in itself, covered that, was placed out to bid in early May. 3 contractors attended the pre-bid meeting, and we opened bids on June 5th. You can see the bid summary in the table there. Ashford Construction attended the pre-bid meeting, but they didn't submit a bid. We followed up with them. They said they were just too busy around the time that the bids were coming in to put something together. They had some staff that was out, et cetera. So they said, think about them on the next one. Heritage Builders and RSI Construction both put in bids. They were both very close to each other, which we typically like to see since it tells us that they probably saw the project pretty much the same way. But Heritage Builders was the low bid at $77,500. We looked into them. They've got an active Class B general building contractor's license, called their references. Everybody had good stuff to say. They're based out of Roseman and have done quite a bit of work out here in the Valley. So we've got a good contractor and a good price. So we would the Water Projects Committee and staff would recommend that we accept the low bid of $77,500 for this project.
Justin, that's in the closed structure?
Yeah, so
Doesn't that require air, fresh, outside air?
the venting and everything is going to go up, and I believe are there small gaps at the top where the roof meets? Yeah, so there'll be a little bit of ventilation around the top, below the roof, between the roof and the vertical panels that come up. And then all the vents and everything and the drains will all be extended to get outside of that.
You think there's sufficient air supply?
Yeah.
The design was done when?
The design was done when this building was under construction by AV Engineering.
Right.
Yeah.
None of the standards have changed.
We had them look at that and make sure that it was up to date with current standards. So yeah, the drawing that was put out to bid is current.
You know, I don't understand this heating and cooling system, but I mean, air conditioners are meant to be in the open right there, at least the roof mounted air conditioners. So I just hope the structure doesn't impede the operation.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it shouldn't. AV Engineering's opinion is that it will not also.
They want,
It won't either. AV Engineering, yeah.
Yeah, it seems that it does need to be protected from the heat and the weather of the rain. And this also faces to the northwest. So you're getting some sun on it. So the committee agreed, with the recommendation.
Justin, this is Keith. I've got a question.
Yeah,
Can you describe what the new walls will look like? Are they solid panels? Because George brought up a very good point.
yeah. So they're gonna be placed on the top of the existing concrete block wall. So they'll be standing off there, going vertically up into the air. They're gonna match roughly the metal material that's kind of here where this is the conference room window here. So it's gonna match kind of what those look like. So they'll be solid panels, but there will be some airflow above and below where they stand up off of the wall and then where the roof attaches as well.
So we won't have the screened in look that we're looking at right here. It'll be solid.
There'll be a roll-up metal door that comes down there. That's a solid, it'll be a roll-up, but it doesn't have slats or gaps.
That light on the side.
Yeah, it's gonna it'll have a foot clearance over this light that's here.
Right.
So, and it angles, slopes kind of down towards the background of this photo.
And then some gapping
Yeah.
below the roof line, right?
Yeah, around the horizontal or vertical panels around the.
but we need to make dang sure it's not gonna affect the operation.
Yeah, okay.
Where do we go from there?
Well, I think we can vote on
We
it,
can vote
but
on
just
it.
before it boards the contract, just to make sure.
Verify everything. Okay, I would think our
Yay.
outside engineer
Yeah.
designer would know too. Okay, so I'm gonna move on 8C4.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Director Mercy, we have a second. Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Jay Tremblay,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried.
Okay, next is 8C5, consideration and possible action on acceptance of the warranty deed and related improvements for the Northgate Travel Plaza customer turnout. And that's Mr. Livesay again.
All right, last time you'll hear from me tonight, I promise. So if you go out the 58 freeway, out towards Edward Air Force Base is Northgate or Roseman Boulevard that heads to the Northgate. We have a new customer out there called Northgate Travel Plaza. It's a large truck stop, and they connected to our North Feeder pipeline, right where this star is at. So this is Cal City Boulevard on the north here, and then this is Roseman Boulevard or Northgate Boulevard as it goes out towards Edwards Air Force Base. So just getting oriented here. They've got a fairly small connection, a 2-inch turnout off of the North Feeder. That work is completed. It was all inspected by AVEK staff and in compliance with the design plans and our standards. And so to transfer those improvements to AVEK, we asked the customer to furnish a warranty deed and bill of sale. And so that would turn over the improvements, which are about 15 linear feet of 2-inch copper pipe, the associated valves, meter, sample station, et cetera. And they'll turn that over to AVEK for long-term operation and maintenance of that. So they're giving it to us via this warranty deed. Our legal counsel has reviewed the form of warranty deed and bill of sale. And so recommending acceptance of that to officially transfer those improvements over to AVEK. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, the committee,
Clear cut.
the committee agreed with this recommendation, so I'll move on 8C5.
We have a motion by Director Miller. We have a second.
I'll second. This is Keith.
We have a second by Director Dias. There's no further questions or comments. Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Jay Tremblay,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President, I just want to thank Senior Engineer Roberts and Engineer Manager Liv Say for their constant attention
Yeah.
and good work.
Thank you.
We got that tank done. It
Thank you
seems
much.
like it was just recently,
Okay,
and that's all I have.
good report. We'll move on to item number 9, General Manager's report.
All right, thank you. Good evening. So before we get into the slide, which Peter is going to cover, just wanted to jump back to the enclosure. I just want to make sure that the board understands the equipment that we're going to cover out there is not the condenser for the HVAC system. That is a separate unit that sits over here that's not going to be covered. So the equipment that is there doesn't need the same type of ventilation that the condenser.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep, you're welcome. So, I'll turn this slide over to Peter to give an update on the SNP Phase 2 grant application.
All right. Good evening, President Lang and board. So I believe it was in late May, the board approved a contract with Bueller Environmental to start working on some grant proposals for our SNP 2 project. So just wanted to give you an update. Staff and Bueller Environmental worked together and completed a roadmap, which is kind of a project definition and the plan for moving that grant project forward. They did the project definition documents, and Bueller was able to submit those. So we have our preliminary grant in place for the Prop 4 grant funding. The initial request is $60 million in grant funds, so that would essentially cover the entire project. Their staff is currently working on 4 more packages that are required for the full completion of the grant. So those are a general overview, technical, environmental, and financial packages. And right now, Bueller is on track to finish all the grant work by the end of the year. So we'll keep you updated as that moves forward, but did get that application in early, which is good for us. AVEK's on the board early. It'll get a good review by DWR. So that's all I have to report, but happy to answer questions.
The end of the year seems more time than it should.
The end of the year is when we need to have it completed. So we're on track to have it completed within the time frame. I would anticipate that it'll be well ahead of December.
Thank you, Peter. So we'll keep the board posted on that as we work through that process. So this is our budget schedule, different components associated with our fiscal year 25-26 budget. You can see we've crossed through the various budget items that have been presented to the board that will be included in the final budget. Down towards the bottom, you can see State Water Project. We just received the fixed cost estimate from DWR within the last few days. So that's the last component that we are waiting for. So we're going to be working through the Water Rate Committee end of next week, and then we'll be ready to present the preliminary budget to the Finance Committee, hopefully in late July, and then schedule a workshop with the full board to go through the entire budget. So things are looking good there, and just wanted to share update as to where we're at with the budget preparation.
Thank you. That helps. Appreciate it.
And then just a few upcoming events. I'm going to take a couple days off next Monday and Tuesday, so I'll be out of the office. You'll be able to reach me if you need to, but rest of the management staff will be here in my place. And then we have the advisory committee with the Water Master next Wednesday at 10 a.m. And then the following week, the Water Master board meeting also at 10 a.m. here at AVEK and on Zoom. And then there is a CSDA annual conference coming up in Monterey towards the end of August. And I believe we have one director that's interested in attending that. So, and that's all I have to report, unless you have any questions on any specific projects or things that staff is working on.
Okay. Any additional comments? Okay, we'll move on to item number 10, Director's Reports.
Mr. President, I have a brief report. We hosted, we meaning AVEK and the AD Water Master, admin. We hosted a group of realtors today here at the treatment plant in the executive board room. And Angel and Peter did a very nice presentation, which was focused on what realtors need to know about the well processes and even the general information about what we do here with our treatment plant and what AVEK is. And so we had about 20, I think, here. Yeah, they also got the tour of the treatment plant. Thank you, John, for doing that. And I think they dropped into the lab as well. So I really believe it's good for our realtors, our professionals, to understand what we do. And they really appreciated the presentation. So I thank you guys for taking care of that and adding a good word out into the world for us.
So,
Thank you.
sounded very positive.
It was. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing, we'll move on to item number 11, attorney's report.
Nothing to report, President Lane.
Well, that's good news.
It's all on retainer.
Request for future agenda items.
Better news.
Okay, Matt, do we have a closed session?
We do not have a reason for closed session.
Oh, gosh, dang.
Yeah,
Yeah, wow.
unless we wanted to go back there and have a snack or something, you know?
Okay, that'll bring us to an adjournment then.
Mr. President, I move we adjourn.
All right. Director Paris,
I'll second.
Director Miller. Okay, I won't say any further questions or comments, so I don't think there will be any.
There are cookies in the back.
Okay, Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris.
Yes.
Jay Tremblay,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Everybody have a good evening.
All right, thank you.
Wow, 6:20.